IELTS Speaking Part 1 is challenging. You have a conversation with the examiner that lasts 4 to 5 minutes, and you have to answer about 8 to 10 questions about common topics, like your work or study, your home and your hobbies. That's a lot of questions, and you have to give answers that tick all the boxes: vocabulary, grammar, flow, and so on. That's hard. If you want to score high in part 1, you need to know what types of questions you will be asked and how you have to answer them. And this is what I'm going to show you in this video. We have a look at common questions in IELTS Speaking Part 1, and you will learn how to give high-scoring answers. By the way, guys, if you are going to take your IELTS soon, check out my IELTS materials. There, I teach you everything you need to score high. I show you step by step how to give high-scoring answers, and of course, we do many practice tests together, so you will feel confident for your test. The link is in the description. And now, let's get started. First, the IELTS speaking examiner doesn't just walk into the room and start asking difficult questions. Instead, the examiner will introduce himself or herself, then ask your name. Respond with a full sentence. I would get a low score if I just say Juva. Instead, I should say, my name is Juva. If you have a nickname, you can use it too. For example, my name is Supawidi, but you can call me Sue. Smile and act like you would when you are meeting a stranger. Be friendly, but not silly. I would not say, my name is Juva, like this with a fake smile. Continue speaking naturally and making eye contact and gestures throughout the whole speaking section. Further, the examiner will also ask to see your ID, so have it ready. You don't want to stand and take it from a button pocket on the back of your trousers. It's embarrassing and takes time. If you get embarrassed, you will do poorly, so plan ahead so you can remain confident. Also, when the examiner asks you to show your ID, don't just give the examiner your ID without saying anything. Use full sentences like, yes, I have it right here. One moment, here it is. After showing your ID, the real test begins. The examiner will ask you questions about different topics, and you need to answer them. And this is where it gets tricky. This is where many IELTS test takers fall into a trap that costs them a lot of points. Let's have a look at this trap. Many of the questions naturally have a yes or no answer. For example, are you a student? This question can be answered yes or no. But guys, don't do this. Remember, this is a test of your ability to speak English. If you only say yes or no, the examiner has no idea if you can create a full sentence. Therefore, always say a sentence or two that explains your response. For example, I could say, yes, I'm a student at Oxford University. I'm taking law courses. Or I could say, no, I graduated last spring. I studied at Oxford University, but now I have my first job. The answer really doesn't matter. The point is that you talk for a few sentences, so the examiner knows that you have a good vocabulary and grammar. Here's another important tip that's easy to miss. You must answer the question. Now you may think, Juva, I know that I have to answer the question. You don't need to tell me this. But hear me out. Many IELTS test takers try so hard to expound their answers that they go off from the topic. So they are not answering the question. Let's say the examiner asks, do you have a hobby? Have a look at this answer. Chess is really interesting. It's a board game for 2 players. The goal is to capture the other player's king. That's grammatically correct, but it doesn't answer the question. The examiner now knows what chess is. However, the examiner doesn't know whether you play it as a hobby because you never answered this question. Here's a Band 9 answer. I really enjoy playing chess because it's challenging trying to capture the other player's king. The game has 2 players, so it's a good way to spend time with my friends. This answer ties the game to the question. The examiner knows that you like chess, plus you give the reasons that you like it. This answers the question completely and increases your score. Guys, if you find this video helpful, hit the like button. Also, comment down below whether you want to have more videos about IELTS speaking. Write yes if you want more. If you want me to talk about something else, tell me your video wish in the comments. I would love to know. Now, let's have a look at 6 more tips for IELTS speaking part 1. It's important to know that the examiner asks you specific questions, and you can't ask for a different question. It's not a problem if the answer is no. The important thing is to give full sentences and explain your reasons. For example, the examiner might ask if you have pets. You can say, "No, I don't have any. My apartment doesn't allow pets. I'd like to get a cat someday though." Or you might be asked, "Do you like sports?" Your negative response might be, "No, I'm not good at sports. I prefer reading books." If you don't know much about a topic, you can say so too. For instance, the examiner may ask, "Do many people in your country play sports?" You can say, "I don't really know. However, sports are popular in school. I think many people watch football on television too." So even if your answer is no, you can expand on the answer, and this is what gets you points. Now, this is important, guys, because it makes IELTS speaking so much easier. You may be worried if what you're talking about is good enough, especially if you don't have lots of experiences to talk about. Don't worry, the examiner is not grading you on what you say. It doesn't matter if you like the topic or not. Rather, you are scored on how well you speak in English. There are no right and wrong answers to the questions. Therefore, answer about your life and experiences and don't try to make the answer clever or unusual. Simple and clear is best. Next, this is something that I found very confusing when I took the IELTS speaking test the first time. I didn't know that this would happen, and it really stressed me out. You must absolutely know that this is going to happen, because otherwise you won't know what's going on. In IELTS speaking, the examiner will constantly interrupt you with the next question. This doesn't mean that you made a mistake. The examiner has to do this because he has to check whether you can talk about different topics, and that's why he's asking you new questions all the time. I've taken the IELTS several times, and the examiners always interrupt me. If you know that in advance, you can be relaxed in your test because you know that this doesn't have anything to do with your English skills. Instead of panicking, just answer the next question. The next point is super important. It's about neighborhood and hometown questions. Some test takers are confused because they don't know the difference between neighborhood and hometown. And then they freeze because they don't know what the examiner means. So let's clear this up. In the IELTS, a neighborhood refers to where you live now. For example, you can talk about the streets and shops around your home. By contrast, your hometown is where you grew up as a child. It doesn't have to be where you were born. Now, you may have lived in many places. That's okay. Just pick one and talk about it. Use the one that you know the best, so it's easiest to think of answers. If you know a lot about a certain place, it will be easier for you to talk and to show the examiner that you have a broad vocabulary, and this will make your band score go up. Now, let's have a look at an essential point. What do you do if you don't understand the question? What you should not do is try to answer the question although you don't understand it. This can go terribly wrong because you may give an answer that is not related to the question, and then your band score goes down. What you should do is ask what the examiner means. For example, you can say, "What does something mean?" Or, "Would you please repeat that? I didn't hear." Some students are too nervous to ask, so they give an answer that they think may fit. If you give an answer that doesn't match the question, you will lose points. It's much better to ask what the examiner means. That's a normal part of a conversation if you do it once or twice, so it's absolutely fine to do this. The next tip is essential for getting a high score in part 1. Pay attention to tense. This makes a huge difference in your final band score. The examiner will ask questions about your childhood, what you're doing now, and about your goals. That means you need to talk about the past, present, and future. You need to change the verb tenses to match the situation if you want to boost your score. For example, the examiner may ask, "What career would you like in the future?" Here's a high-scoring response. "Right now, I'm studying law. In the future, I will work for a law firm that specializes in protecting the environment." Have a closer look at this answer. I said am studying to show what I'm doing now, and will work to show what I will do in the future. To get a high score, you must use past, present, and future verbs properly. Don't forget to do this in your IELTS speaking test. Lastly, remember that every examiner is different. Some smile a lot and some don't. Some ask questions rather quickly, and the examiners come from different countries too. Therefore, don't be surprised if your examiner doesn't match your imagination. This is especially true if you take the test more than once. I've taken the IELTS several times, and my speaking examiners were very different. Think of the examiner like someone who is sitting next to you on an airplane. No matter who you get, plan on speaking in a friendly, confident way. That's it. That's how to give high-scoring answers for IELTS Speaking Part 1. I hope you guys liked this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you're notified when the next video comes out. Also, share this video with your friends so they can improve their IELTS speaking score too. See you in the next video!